Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another Conversations with Mark. We're here with Adam Dietrich. Adam is the board president of the Ottawa County Farm Bureau, as well as really a leader at Homestead Orchards. We're super excited to spend some time with you today, learn a little bit more about apples. And I know people think of Michigan as the automotive state, but we're really a really big state for agriculture. Second most diverse crops grown only after California. And we're a pretty big apple growing state. For folks that don't know about your farm here and Ottawa County agriculture, can you tell us a little bit about what that means to be here right now, right here in the middle of apple country?
Yeah, we are right in the middle of it. Well, thanks, Mark. I'm glad you're here today. And I thank you for inviting me on this podcast. A little bit about me and a little about Homestead Orchards. Homestead Orchards is one piece of the Dietrich family puzzle around here. So there's a couple of farms around here that we partner up and then we pack apples together. But Homestead Orchards is our side of the family, the farm. And it's my dad and my uncle, and then I have a brother and a cousin that are also involved in it too. And we have right around 500 acres of apples. We also do some sweet cherries, and all of that's hand picked, and there's a lot of labor that goes into that. And then, along with our cousins who have their own separate farm, we co-operate this packing facility that we're in here today. So we pack all of our apples and then ship out to various communities around the states. And then a little bit even gets exported out of the United States too.
So
So.
when you say pack, these apples are going to be picked by hand in the fields. They're going to
Mhm.
come in big bins. You're going to probably wash them and make sure that they're of good quality. They look right.
Yeah,
You're going to
absolutely.
probably put them in those little plastic bags. Is that right? Or do you
We do
bulk
a
build them
we
too?
do a lot of bagging. It's probably the lion's share of what we pack goes into either a poly or a pouch bag and gets shipped out that way. And then we of course have some like these trays in front of you here where they might be on display in your regular retail grocery stores as well.
I'm always amazed when I travel, go to the grocery store, and I'm probably one of the biggest apple lovers there is. I have at least one every
I'm
day.
happy to hear that.
But I'll go to a store if I'm at a meeting in California or something and grab a bag of apples. And man, I can't believe it. How frequently do I grab a bag of apples and it says Michigan, whether it's Sparta, Conklin, you name it? This is really the greatest concentration of apple growing in our state, if I understand this correctly. We have a little bit more on the southwest, far southwest side, but this is really the heart of it. And you talked a little bit about packing bags out. Can you give us an idea on scope? So, like when we talk about those poly bags, you're going to put a bunch of those in a bigger box and then ship that out.
Mhm.
How many bags go in a box, and then about how many boxes do you ship out on an average year?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. So the industry standard box that we pick out in the field, for us is between 18 and 20 bushels of apples. So that's around like 850 pounds of apples, if you want to put that into a perspective. And between, on our farm, we picked around last year. I think we topped 23,000 bins on our farm of those 20 bushel carton bins. Now, not all of them get put into a bag for the retail market. A certain percentage of them has defects because of we had a hailstorm through here. Actually, we were sitting in this very room when the hail came through this past June and took a portion of those apples and sent them to the processor instead.
Does
But
that mean that they go to sauce or juice or something like
yeah,
that?
applesauce is a big use for a lot of our apples in the state. Michigan is been known for a processing state, so there's a heavy processing industry in the state. But juice, cider, apple slices, so things that go into pies or other desserts is a very common use for apples as well.
McDonald's packets, I've heard a lot of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, we have in the past worked quite a bit with McDonald's as well to put the apple dippers.
Yeah.
So that was something that McDonald's has partnered big in the state of Michigan in years past and continued to today is to use a lot of apples for that, which is a healthy option for people. So back to your question though about bags and things. So we maybe in this facility here we might pack 40 to thousand bins of apples a year, depending on, the frequency of storms and what that takes out of our total supply of apples. We do with our crew here put, you know, in a typical bag between 5 to 10 apples, and then in a box that goes to the store, usually it's 12 bags in a box, or different size bags.
So that's a ton of apples. That's, I
It
mean,
ends
it's
up being quite a bit. A semi-load of apples with 1,000 cartons or more, and 12 bags in each carton.
yeah,
And you can add
40,000
up.
pounds every time you walk out the
Yep,
door, huh?
on your way to your
Yeah.
store.
Yeah. That's great. Ottawa County has a strong agricultural identity,
Mhm.
and we've seen changes over the years. In fact, you and I were talking just before we started about this building and that it had a different use at the time.
Yeah,
And we've seen apples, tomatoes, peppers, all kinds of different things. Blueberries is really big in Ottawa County, but as the Farm Bureau guy, can you talk a little bit about what the face of agriculture looks like in Ottawa County and how that's
sure.
changed?
Yeah, Mark, that's great. You brought up how Michigan is the second most diverse agricultural state, and you're right to say that. But Ottawa County and the west side of the state is where that diversity is really big. We have almost everything here, and I'll let my friends in the thumb have their credit with the sugar beets over there.
Yeah.
We don't maybe do very many of those here, and timber perhaps isn't very big in Ottawa County, but we have everything else. Dairy,
Well, I was telling you that
pork.
when I was in high school, I worked on a celery farm in
Oh yeah,
Hudsonville. My dad had a muck farm. He grew radishes and green onions and bunch products. So vegetables and just countless other
and
things.
those folks continued to do that down there, especially near the Hudsonville area. And you're right with blueberries on the West Coast, up and down the whole length of the state, but very prevalent here in Ottawa County. I mentioned in our farm alone, we grow apples and sweet cherries, but my family has a rich history. We had peaches, we had other commodities. I mean, when my grandpa was farming, at a young age, I mean, they still had dairy cows and chickens and everything else too. So, but over time, those farms have chose to some farms have chose to pull back from the diversified center and kind of hone in on something that they specialized in. And in our family's case, it was apples and some sweet cherries.
Well, and if you're going to be in the apple business, you're playing the long game because you don't
Yes.
plant a tree this year and expect to get anything out of it next year, I assume. How many
Or
years?
the year after.
And they've changed a lot because now you have more of the dwarf style trees.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing, I don't know, but it seems like the dwarf trees probably get mature a little bit quicker. But you're still talking a couple of years just to generate any fruit, and probably not
Mhm.
peak fruit. Can you talk a
Correct.
little bit about that cycle?
Yeah, so it's a big investment for us. Obviously, for us, it's identifying a piece of dirt that will work long term. So most of our apples are on the high ground in the state in the West Coast. I mean, this is the ridge. You mentioned it. It's this is ground zero for apple production in the state. There's other pockets throughout the state, of course, that have those unique characteristics that can grow good fruit, but the ridge is really well known for that. And so identifying a piece of dirt that will work for it, and then for us, it's a long term investment. So we're looking for the right rootstock, and then hoping that we pick the right varieties that the consumer is going to want down the road in 10 and 20 years,
Because
knowing that those consumers might change their mind.
yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it seemed like the apple of choice was the Red Delicious. And my kids were like, "Those are terrible. Why don't buy those?" And it's a unique, but the people's palates change, and
Mhm.
so you've got to see to the future. You've got to make that long-term investment, years in the making, and it's quite a risk. But that's farming for you. It's always about risk and
Yeah,
trying to make sure you make the right
you have to be
gamble.
a really good gambler. Yes.
There's been a lot of conversation about local foods and eating healthier.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about what that means for the products you pack out here, and maybe just even what it means for the health of the product that's going to the consumer? Because that too has changed a lot with storage and controlled atmosphere and things like that. It makes the ability for us to have fresh apples from Michigan, I think, year round, really.
Yeah. So I'm glad you bring this up because you're talking to an apple farmer, and what's more healthy than eating an apple, right? Honestly, when you think about this big push for health, I think that has changed a lot in the last really in a big way in the last few months, but in the last couple of years. So identifying things that are important to moms and their kitchens, what they want to feed their children. I think local where your food comes from is very important. for in my family or whatever, they are always concerned about that kind of thing too. You know, now we've seen that there's been a renewed interest in having whole milk in schools. I think that's been a great thing for the dairy industry. For us, apples, like we benefit every year with, the school lunch program, school purchases or government purchases of apples to make sure that those are available in schools for people. Like that's an important thing for us too, but also I think to make sure that we're putting good quality foods in front of our youth to develop those healthy eating habits at an early age. And our farm we ship apples a long ways. Florida is a destination for some of our that far away, I guess, is southern states. Inside of our community here, inside of your district, I mean, there is a lot of farm markets and farmers markets, and there's an opportunity in a big way for people to become familiar with their producers. Maybe it don't work for our farm to go to these farmers markets, but I know a lot of friends that are doing that are bringing produce right to there and having those conversations right centered on what is valuable to those families that back home, making sure that they have a good connection to their producers and understand where their food's coming from.
Well, and of course, it's great to see great Michigan products going into the classroom, but it's a healthy product.
Yeah.
And like you said, teaching healthy eating habits. But a lot of times, kids in these urban districts, they don't really understand where they come from. Probably a lot of little kids think that apples come from Meyer.
Mm.
And when they come out to a place that has a farm market, a fruit stand, small or large, they get a chance to see this variety of all kinds of different apples or peaches or plums or any other kind of fruits that happen to be grown here in our great state. And it's a chance for them to be educated. And certainly they're going to drive out there. And I'm sure the questions in the car, something like, "What's on that tree, Mom?" Or "What are they picking over there?" And probably even more questions come from that when they leave. And so it's a tremendous opportunity for the next generation to learn about healthy food. And of course, local and sustainable is important. And the closer it is, the better it is. And you guys play a huge part of that.
Sure. I was just going to mention too, something that Ottawa County Farm Bureau has been doing for the last 5 years is we have been taking an extra effort to get ag into the classrooms. So we have a teacher that we partner with a critter barn to bring ag education directly in the classroom for free. Any classroom that requests it in Ottawa County, we can send this professional in to do some farmer ag lessons right in the classroom. So that's something that we've been proud to offer for the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's great. But it also probably, piques some interest about, like,
Hmm.
maybe I want to be a farmer someday because you've got to find somebody to replace the next generation, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are looking for the next farmers to come down the
Yeah.
pike. So,
You've been in farming for a long time. I'm sure you have some great stories, but do you have any personal stories that say this is why I do the work? Something that says, as an apple grower running a pretty big operation here, what's the special story that you have?
yeah, I thought about this question or what it could look like, and honestly, there's so many. You know, there's never a dull moment on the farm. If there is, it's because you haven't looked around in a minute. There's always something that needs to be worked on or looked at. But for me, I just find a lot of joy at the end of harvest when we can get the last bin of apples in, and the harvest crew always celebrates quite a bit at the end too, along with us, and it's a really joyous moment when you have that last bin of apples finally tucked away outside of the influences of Mother Nature or
Yeah.
out of the control of her grasp, I suppose.
I don't think
Um,
people really understand what that means, but growing up on a farm, whether we're having a large crop of parsnips or like the same thing, we put them in large bins and ship them out, and semi load after semi load would go out the door. And they're almost like your children, where you've spent the whole summer raising them, and to know that they didn't get some sort of disease or they weren't destroyed
sure.
by hail, that they're harvested correctly, that they left the barn. And when they leave, there is a huge satisfaction. It's a great feeling of satisfaction when you see the last bin leave, but there's
Mhm.
also this like, okay, what's next then?
Yeah. And I also enjoy greatly is the opportunity to share some of our products. You know, typically my most fun moment is when my nieces and nephews show up, and they're like, "We got to go get an apple."
Yeah.
Oh, that's something I can easily go and have 5 minutes to go spend with my nieces and nephews and get them an apple or whatever. But just sharing with family or friends or taking them to your neighbors, that's a special part
Yeah.
of it too.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Adam, for joining us today. Really appreciate all you do for growing great, healthy crops. Again, one of my favorites, apples, and appreciate you being on our show today.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.